History is a clock that people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. It is also a compass that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. History tells of people where they have been and what they have been, where they are and what they are. Most important, history tells a people where they still must go, what they still must be. The relationship of history to the people is the same as the relationship of a mother to her child.
From antiquity to the present, our people need to develop a new paradigm. It's time for an awakening with your host, Brother Elliot. Sundays, 7 p.m., Fridays at 8 p.m. For podcasting or live program scheduling, hit us up at timeforanawakening@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Time for an Awakening at 7:13 on this Sunday edition of Time for an Awakening. Before we get started with our program this evening, I want to welcome in my co-host, Philadelphia activist and tour guide at the African American Museum here in Philadelphia at 7th and Arch Street. Brother Richard is with us. Brother Richard.
Yes, sir, Brother Elliot.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, Elliot. I'm doing fine. I'm looking forward to our discussion about, it seems like we've been on a roll in bringing forth the objective and the thinking and the activism around reparations that's going on around the country. So I'm glad to be continuing this process of exposing myself and the broader Time for Awakening community around what is going on and what is it that we can do.
Well, it's that time, Richard. It's time for this. We noticed through our historical journey here and the struggle here in this country, it's been times for a lot of things, and it's time for this, even though black leadership don't seem to think so, but that's another conversation, and we'll probably have it with our guest this evening. But joining us in discussion this evening on this is reparations activist, organizer, and Director of Reparations United. Brother Kamm Howard is with us, and Chief of Staff of Afrodescendant Nation, Miss Tamara Achoti Singleton, is joining us. The upcoming Reparations Strategy Call to Action meeting is October the 11th, 2024, with over 30 organizations participating. Also, we're going to get updates on the National Reparations Plebiscite and the Plebiscite Marathon that's coming up. Our guest this evening is with us. Sister Achoti Singleton is with us. Sister Achoti, are you there? Uh-oh. Sister Achoti, can you hear me? Well, Brother Kamm. Brother Kamm, are you there?
I am here, brother. How are you, brother?
How are you, sir?
Brother Richard, man, it's good to be back.
Let me see something here. Sister Achoti, can you hear me? I don't think she has her audio on. I'll take her out so she can come back. Maybe she can do it that way. Brother Kamm, good to have you back. It's been a while.
It has been a while, brother. Happy to be back.
Brother Kamm, before we kind of get started on things, talk about some of the things that you've been doing since the last time you've been on. There's been a lot of changes, but this upcoming National Reparations Strategy Call to Action is kind of key in the development of trying to bring formations together. But before we do that, just talk about some of the things that you've been doing the past maybe 6 months, centering around these the Democratic Party candidates for president and other things that you've been doing before we kind of spin off into some of the subject matter this evening.
Sure. About a year ago, I started the Earn the Black Vote campaign. Our goal at Earn the Black Vote campaign, similar to our strategy session campaign, is to get a reparations commission started, enacted by executive order of the president, Joe Biden. We started that campaign asserting that the black vote was key to a victory for Biden. He couldn't win without it. It's the same way with Kamala. She can't win without it. if she's to win, she's going to have to get it. And we indicated that for him to get that, he had to do something really big, because black voters were, we had a study that showed that 2.9 million black voters was disappointed, who had voted for Biden. Democrats who voted for him in 2020 were disappointed. And we knew he couldn't win with those numbers. And we tried to point out to him, that those numbers existed. Other people were telling him you need to do certain other things. We were telling them, no, you need to do this executive order. We had demonstrated that there was political will in the Democratic Party for reparations from, local and state, but also the federal legislators. 90% federal elected congresspersons and senators in the last Congress agreed to sign on to the bill. That's unheard of, the type of support we had in Congress for this legislation. But unfortunately, with the rules of the Senate, we knew we couldn't get this bill out of the Senate even if we got it out of the House. And so it had to come through an executive order. So we were pushing for that to happen prior to Juneteenth. We knew if it didn't happen by Juneteenth, it probably wasn't going to happen until the election. And when it didn't happen by Juneteenth, a lot of people determined that it was over, And so this upcoming strategy session is primarily a continuation of our work we started with the Earn the Black Vote campaign, and to assert that it's not over until we say it's over.
Let me. What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna dip over. I'm gonna kind of go back and forth. I think Sister Achoti is back with us. Sister Achoti, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Great. I hear you loud and clear. Sister Achoti,
thank you.
I'm glad to have you with us this evening. Yourself and Kamm Howard talking about the National Reparations Strategy Call to Action meeting on October the 11th, with over 30 organizations participating, and also the reparations plebiscite. I think it's a plebiscite, it's a plebiscite marathon coming up. We just touched with Kamm Howard about some of the things he's been doing leading up to this strategy session. Talk about yourself as the national representative, or chief of staff, of Afrodescendant Nation. Talk about some of the things that the organization have been doing. Some of the things we're familiar with. The last time Dr. Mukaram was with us, the Washington meetings was coming up. Several different formations, reparation formations, was involved then. I'm quite sure more has gotten involved now, because this meeting upcoming has over 30 formations that are involved. Sister Achoti, talk about some of the things that have been accomplished over the past few months since the last time somebody was on.
Thank you, Brother Elliott, again for the opportunity to speak to your listening audience, and greetings to the listening panel. Yes, the National Reparations Convention did take place in May in Washington, D.C., and it was a successful attempt to bring awareness to our people about the need to assert our right to self-determination on our road to achieving reparations. So at that event, we did have lots of great speakers that attended. Queen Mashaki was there, as well as Malik Zulu Shabazz, and Dr. Cornel West, presidential candidate. He also made an appearance and gave a press conference there during that convention. Also, you spoke on the plebiscite vote. We've been on a campaign to have people cast their vote via our website at afrodescendant.org as a plebiscite vote, to cast your vote to declare yourself to be an Afro-descendant, declare your right to assert yourself, your right to self-determination, and in doing so will help us have those numbers that we have self-imposed. Our goal is to obtain at least 1 million Afro-descendants to claim we need at least 1 million people who identify as African American or Black or FBA, American descendants of slaves, all of those terms that have been placed upon us. We need 1 million of us to declare ourselves to be Afro-descendant, become members of the Afro-Descendant Nation, so that we can show the world that we are united as a people and that we are, basically here to collect our check, for lack of better words, to collect what's basically due to us. So that's what we're on the mission to do, a campaign to bring awareness of the term Afro-descendant. We are recognized in the international community as Afro-descendants. So the Afro-Descendant Nation and the president, Dr. Akila Mukaram, has made an initiative for us to spread the word that we are Afro-descendants, and allowing your listening audience at this time to embrace that term Afro-descendant. And in doing so, we believe that can put us on a path to reparations. So on November 5th, we're having a reparations marathon. And at that time, you will be able to cast your vote by texting reparations to 1-877-506-2184 to let your voice be heard. This is the way that you can vote for reparations, at the same time voting for your right to self-determination. And so with that, I welcome any questions regarding what we've been doing. And thank you once again, my brother, for allowing me an opportunity to speak on behalf of the Afro-Descendant Nation.
Brother Kamm, Sister Cody talked about the plebiscite. Let me ask you a question, and both of y'all can come in on this. Because Kamm, you've been out here, and I'm quite sure Sister Cody is familiar with a lot of the formations that have developed in this struggle for reparations. In every city, you have different formations. Some of the names was just mentioned by Sister Cody. Freedmen, ADOS, different formations. Richard, familiar with a lot of them, so are you. Talk about the way as an organizer to bring our people together to understand that this struggle we need to be unified in. Even if we self-identify under different categories, that we need to be unified in this struggle. The plebiscite is an excellent way to do it. We've shared it on our website. It's a way that, however, our people self-identify, that they can answer these questions and really put themselves together as a unified body. Talk about it from your perspective, Brother Kamm, and how you see this, because you're involved with all of the organizations in trying to get our people to understand that we need to be unified. Talk to it from your perspective, and I'll jump back over to Sister Cody.
Sure. Unity has been something that we've been striving for as a people since we got here. And there's been moments where we have unified around certain issues. And one of the last issues we unified was around, and that was ending enslavement. And, civil rights and some of the human rights actions also was a large degree of unity. The plebiscite action allows us to determine for ourselves what our relationship is to this government. We were forced to be citizens. It was forced upon us, even though there were many, many advocates at the time for repatriation, many advocates at the time for nationalism on these shores. And there was just a few who really wanted to just integrate into the American society as it existed at that time. And those choices still should be available to us to make. at this point, as opposed to living under these harsh colonial system that we live under today, for which we seek reparations and repair from. The whole notion of unity, we're pushing. Part of our strategy session is to reintroduce into the movement the concept of operational unity. And that's unity without uniformity. And unifying around this particular issue that there must be action targeted toward the federal government for reparations, and not just on the city and state level. We don't have to agree with the actions that come out, but we agree that we must act collectively. And part of what we're doing is we're bringing Dr. Maulana Karinga to give us a 15-minute presentation on operational unity. You know, he's one of the leading theorists of operational unity, along with Dr. Ron Walters, one of our ancestors. And so we're going to, leaving the strategy session, we're going to be having some serious educational and action plans around operational unity going forward, because we can't win unless we're united. And the Plebiscite campaign is one way which we can hold out the idea of unity.
Sister Achoti, you spoke on it briefly a minute ago. Do you want to kind of expand on that? I'm about to pass it over to Brother Richard.
Yes, sir. So the plebiscite vote is basically a registration process to acknowledge that we are Afro-descendants in this nation, and that's our lawful identity that we have chosen for ourselves. As a result of these ballots that's going to come in, the Afrodescendant Nation plan is to take that to the International Court of Justice so that we can get a ruling that we are Afro-descendants with recognition, international recognition, that it will empower us to charge individuals that have put so much on our nation of people. When we declare ourselves to be a nation of people, then we can be paid reparations. And we're declaring ourselves to be a nation of people through that vote. So as Kamm alluded to, that you're basically voting to say, hey, you want to be self-governed, self-determined, and you're doing so underneath your right to declare yourself to be an Afro-descendant and being members of the Afro-descendant nation in unity. Thank you, my brother.
Before Richard, hold on a second. Sister Achoti, I want you to kind of make it clear to the audience that because Dr. Mugaram and others have been working on the international stage for quite a while, along with other attorneys, and this is an accepted term by the UN, nations around the world, and other black nations, whether they're on the continent or in the diaspora, that is used. That's an accepted legal term. Am I correct in saying that?
That is correct. The identity of Afro-descendant is recognized right now in the UN, United Nations, and it has been declared to be our legal identity, our nationality.
Okay.
Which does not void you or usurp you of your cultural or political or racial organizations that you have here, or even religious affiliations that you may have here currently in America. It acts as Afro-descendant, acts as the glue that binds us together, that represents us as a nation of people that are descendants of those that were enslaved here in the Americas.
Okay. Richard, jump in.
We had I'm glad that we're having this discussion and bringing up this point. I was just looking over some prior notes, and when we're talking about being a nation of people and the history of it, I was thinking of Mr. Frazier after Reconstruction. I was thinking of Pete McCade, who pushed the Exodus movement in Oklahoma, and Du Bois raised the nation within a nation, and Harry Hayward and Amari Obadeli. And then I'm thinking of, and I'm trying to come to a question that I really think the plebiscite is really, really, really important. And you had mentioned, Sister Achoti, that in that it gives each group the ability to self-identify as a group. I guess what I'm asking or want to ask, why is that important, and how does that not negate us being classified as a nation? How is it important for people to self-identify their identity, but also important to be considered a nation of people that it has, in relationship to the international world?
So when we think about a nation of people, they can identify themselves. When we think of people such as, when we say Germans, we can say they came from Germany and they have an identity. They're German. We, on the other hand, and the list goes on with all of these other nations, right? We as so-called African American, so-called Black, or whatever the flavor they want to put, the label they want to put on us for their political reasons, have been subjected to their labels. At this time, we're saying that this is Afrodescendant Nation. Afrodescendant is our identity. And for us to gather ourselves together as a nation, 1 million or plus strong, will show that we're united for one cause. And that cause is for us to be declared and recognized around the world as Afro-descendants, and also declare ourselves our right to be self-determined, determine ourselves' future as well as the future of our descendants. And also make it very clear that we as a nation of people united together in as many from as many sectors or organizations or religious affiliations they may have, we have one common thing that unites us. That's the glue that I spoke of, the title Afro-descendant. So let me just expound on the term Afro-descendant. What does that mean? It's a people who were forcefully disposed from their homeland, Africa, were transported to the Americas and slavery diaspora for the purposes of enslavement. So that would include our indigenous and aboriginal brothers and sisters, our freedmen people who were here prior to Christopher Columbus coming and, the rape, robbing, and pillaging of this land, which was called Turtle Island. That includes them as well, because they were taken from these lands and brought to other places such as Europe and Spain. So then we move forward in that definition of Afro-descendant to, you were subject to slavery, whether it was in Americas, in South America, in the Americas, South, North and South, in Europe, or over in Africa. You were subjected to forced mixed breeding and rape, have experienced through force the loss of mother tongue, culture, and religion, and or have experienced racial discrimination due to the lost ties or partially lost ties from their original identity. So if you could put a check mark to all of those different identity parts to the term Afro-descendant, then you are an Afro-descendant. Once we begin to embrace that term, then we can become united and look like and be like and begin to perform like, i.e. asserting our right to self-determination as a nation. And I just want to throw this in for the listening audience, that reparations have not been given to individuals in our history. It has always been given to a nation of people. Mm-hmm. So the Afro-Descendant Nation is offering you that opportunity to become members of the Afro-Descendant Nation, embrace the term Afro-Descendant, so that we can get what's due to us as a nation of people. And I pray I answered your question, my brother.
Oh yes, and I still want to, and I want to come to you, Kamm. But I think that what is being asked of us, in this generation at this point in time, is moving out of the theoretical into the practical and operation. One thing that I liked about, and this is what I want to make sure I'm clear on, the plebiscite ballot gives us the opportunity to answer the questions for ourselves in relationship to self-identification. The only reason why I'm really harping on this, because I see this as this self-identification issue becomes very much a challenge in our organizing with our diversity. So can you go and explain, if I'm not mistaken, the ballot and how the ballot does not, once again, take away from our self-identity, realizing the historical, but it also gives us a unification form by identifying as a nation of Afro-descendants. I'm interested because I think that's what the about the ballot itself and what does it do, the plebiscite itself, and what does it do, and how does it help us in dealing with our diversity and creating unification instead of we're kind of competing with each other against our identity, if that makes sense.
Yes, that does make. Are you asking me, my brother? Or?
Yes. I want you to explain the ballot. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, so the ballot consists of a series of 8 questions, I do believe. And it does ask you a question about self-determination and how you want to be determined, or how do you view yourself at this time. I need to make it clear to the listening audience that at this time and moving forward, the Afro-Descendant Nation want to embrace all of those individuals that can identify with that term Afro-descendant. And so, speaking to your exact point, on that ballot, there's a series of questions. And one of those questions, points to how you declare yourself.
Right.
How do you declare yourself? And it gives you a choice. And to speak to the ballot that's from the 550 plus ballots that's already been cast, an astounding amount of our people have cast a ballot for how do they identify as I'm not sure. Mm. And so if you're not sure who you are, how could you validate your identity? And so even for those that are saying, I'm not sure, even for those that are saying freedmen, even for those that are saying indigenous, even for those that are saying Pan-African, FBA, adults, we're saying we welcome you and we want to welcome you into our nation, just as in America, you have Asian Americans, African Americans, Italian Americans, so on and so on. We're saying this is a nation of Afro-descendants. Now, how you categorize yourself after that, we're giving you the freedom to do so. But one thing for sure, and 2 things about it, under the Afro-descendant nation, you have that covering, and you also have that, you also add into the statistics that we need to prove that we can be a self-determined, self-governed nation. Numbers is everything in the grand scheme of things. So the ballot does ask valid questions, and it's important that your listening audience make their voice heard and answer the questions truthfully so that we can gather this information so that we can have valid data to bring forward towards the United Nations to say, hey, this is the group of people who have declared themselves to be a nation of people with the right to be self-determined, and these are who they are.
And I just the reason why I want to try to continue to emphasize that is because of the, again, it provides in this moment of voting, the ballot process is also a way where we're voting, not necessarily on the existing parties, but we're voting in our own self-interest around that we are a people. We're not a population. We're not a part of something that was just imposed on us. Kamm, one thing that, as we, I've seen the work you've been doing. I noticed that you have I'm going to call it an article in this, the book, Reparations and Reparatory Justice, Past, Present, and Future, which was added by Sunita Kente Chai and Mary Frances Berry and V.P. Franklin. What I'm interested in, we've seen what happened in California when we're talking about organizing around and utilizing the the legislative process. And if I'm not mistaken, that's what we're supposed to be moving towards, making the reparations movement become more effective in that process. Can you give me your assessment of why, starting off with 30, why it's important that other organizations come together as we approach the legislative process with the backdrop of what happened in California in our mind. Can you give me the importance of why this is important, the activity, that the strategy event that is going to occur? Why is that important when we're talking about involvement with the legislative process? So,
if we're going to get reparations from this country, there's only three ways we can get it. And that's through one of the branches of government, either through the legal branch, which we have, with the way the courts are set up now, there's no chance of us getting a legal victory in the Supreme Court. We have not successfully appealed the two lowercase rulings against reparations for corporate injury. And so if we can't do it legally, then we have to do it legislatively or through the executive branch. Now, the way the Senate is established, there's a process called a filibuster where they can continue the debate on a particular issue and never bring it to a vote. And the bill dies in debate. And in order to avoid a filibuster, you need 60 Senate votes to avoid a filibuster. A reparations conversation in the Senate would certainly spark a Republican filibuster action. And so there's no way to pass this legislation out of the Congress through the Senate, although we had enough votes in the House to pass it. In the last Congress, the leadership didn't bring it to the floor for a vote. They voted out of committee, out of Judiciary Committee, but didn't bring it to the floor for a vote. And so if we can't get it through the court and we can't get it legislatively based on the rules of the Senate and the actions we know that the Republican Party will put forth, the only other way to get federal redress is through the executive branch. And that is, in our case, getting the current president to establish a reparations commission via executive order. Why a commission? Well, the commission is the route that this country utilizes to solve individual and specific issues. There's been race commissions, riot commissions, and the Turner Commission was a riot commission. Clinton established a race commission when he was the president. It was didn't do much. But the commission, the Japanese, attempting to get their repair and redress, they first went through the commission process. That's why Congressman John Conyers introduced the bill, H.R. 40. It wasn't H.R. 40 at the time because he was patterning it after the Japanese process. The indigenous Americans had a commission process that they went through back in the 1950s. So this is just the way that America acts or chooses to act on issues. And we believe we can get, the way we revised the commission in 2017 to focus actually on proposals and projects and policies that actually redress the impact of the crimes they've committed against our people over 400 years. We believe that this commission process, if it's done right, can produce a master plan of redress for Black America. So it's important to engage the process, because if you don't engage the process, you don't get nothing. How are you going to, demand something from this government and don't have any action? You just talking. And so that's what we're trying to do with the reparations strategy session. Is document a series of actions against these 4 targets that we've named, who have the ability to, Biden himself has the ability to act. These other targets have the ability to influence Biden to act. And so that's why we're targeting them. And a lot of actions are being done. But a lot of sparse organizations don't know what the other organizations are doing and how they could assist or amplify their work. And so this strategy session is to come out with a guidebook, as I was stating, an action guidebook for the last 3 months of Biden's administration, and to secure a reparations initiative. He's trying to solidify his legacy, and if we can act in a way that we need to as Black people in this country, then we can make that happen. I wanted to just share something briefly on the question that you asked my sister. We are 50 plus million Black folks in this country. 90% of whatever number we come at, whether it's 50, 52, 53, 48, 90% of us have Afro-descendant status. There's 10% who immigrated here from the continent, roughly, or from Europe. And even our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean have Afro-descendant status, because they came here during the chattelization wars on the continent. In the Caribbean, you find roughly about 15 million Afro-descendants in 12 to 15 nations. So you have all these nation states in the Caribbean with populations that dwarf the population of Black folk in this country, and yet they have national status. They can participate in the UN General Assembly. They are treated as nationals. They have the power to self-determine, as my sister says, self-determine their life. They control their own, to a certain measure, under domination, white supremacy domination, but they control their government, control their social institutions, and they control their economic institutions. The father of Black nationalism in this country, Martin Delaney, stated that we were a nation within a nation. And if you hold on to that position, we are a nation within a nation, but we're a nationless nation. We don't have the status and governance of a nation. But you can view in our communities what I call economic warfare for all these other nationalities within our community. You have Arabs, controlling aspects of our economic communities, Irish, Jews, people who identify as Jewish people, Indians, Chinese, Asians. I mean, all these people are pulling from our community economic life, and that would not happen if we saw ourselves as a nation. We would be engaged in economic warfare as not people who are being victimized by others, but people who are controlling their own economics in their own community. And we have, billions of dollars in our individual communities that we should be controlling, and we're not. And so the plebiscite situation is a way in which we can begin the process of gaining control and power over our lives.
One thing and dealing with the organization and being, as you said, coming together on the 11th in order to, reinforce the strategy as it relates to reparations. The question that comes to mind, and it does tie to the identity question, is the process that's going to happen on the 11th open to all organizations that are dealing with reparations in relationship to being a support or assisting each other towards this goal of getting, the executive branch to give this, put forth this commission? Is there any organization not because of either past history or ideological perspective but they are working on reparations that is not welcome?
No, there's no organization that's not welcome that's working on reparations. We reached out to some who haven't responded, but, when I was in Cobra, I was, in Cobra for 16, 17 years, and from day one, I always held the notion that no one person or organization or scholar or expert owns reparations. In a sense, it belongs, or the fight for reparations, it belongs to every African who has that ancestry. Every Afro-descendant in this country has a right to struggle for reparations and to organize for that struggle. So there are some agreements that we ask everyone to agree to. First of all, we have two sessions. The first session is a rallying session, which is open to the public, everyone. Anyone with the link can register and won't be turned around from the register. And that's basically to fire people up, to get them to understand that this is what has to happen. If we want reparations on the federal level, it's not time to give up. Why give up? And this guy still has the power until he's no longer the president to act on this issue. And so there's no time to give up. In fact, it's time to press even harder because he's looking. He's asking, what do I need to do to solidify my legacy? And so this is something that we should be in our leadership. That's why one of our targets is the CBC. Another of our targets is the 8 Black civil rights organizations because they have this type of influence. So, we must alert these entities and the president himself that this is what we want. So we need all hands on deck. We don't have an opportunity to tell an organization, no, you can't assist. They have to hear from everyone. And this is the premise of operational unity. You don't have to agree on every act or every tactic, or you don't even have to agree to participate in the act or tactic with any other organization. All you have to do in this regard of this session is to agree that you are going to engage in action and that you will disseminate this entire book of action through your network. Those are really the only two criteria for participating in a strategy session, that you're gonna participate in a principled manner. You're gonna agree to an action, to engage in action coming out of the strategy session, 1, 2, or 3, or however many you're capable of committing to, and that you will disseminate the entire action guidebook, and not just your action, but the entire action guidebook across your network. That's operational unity, and we think that if these organizations can hold fast to that agreement that they've agreed to, coming in, some organizations, like I say, we haven't heard from, especially on the free lineage side. But if they were to agree to these agreements, then they're certainly welcome to participate in the closed door strategy session that will follow the public session.
Elliot, the only thing I see that prevents us from doing what Brother Kamm and Sister Achoti is talking about is, I don't know if I should say it, Elliot, but amongst our leadership and members is our own ego and arrogance. In this moment, I think that if we can try to do that, get that on the side, and at least utilize, or at least come to and see, or at least fill out the ballot, and by doing, we can see that we don't have to give up anything in order to have what Brother Kamm talk about, this operational unity. I just think that something that we have to also put on the table, that's in our history, not just in this moment, but in our history has been a challenge, and we have to overcome it. But I just want to pass that back to you, Ellie.
Brother Kamm, you mentioned earlier that during the last session, the votes were there to bring it to the floor, but it was blocked. I'm sorry. The vote was there to bring it to the congressional floor, but it was blocked. We see something similar that has happened in California. Work put in by grassroots community and several different organizations and formations. A 500-page report put together, detailed. Black experts brought in from economy and other levels of different government, and put their shoulder to the wheel and produced this document, and basically turned everything over to the elected officials. And this is where the stumbling and bumbling came in, and the double cross. Something similar happened when, as you said, Kamm, the votes were there, when Clyburn decided not to bring it forth, if I'm not mistaken. So when we see this, and this goes to what you were talking about, Richard, about the different formations. When we see this happening, we need to realize as a collective that these people didn't just double-cross ADOS. They didn't just double-cross freedmen or Pan-Africans or any different formations. They double-crossed all of us in this struggle for reparations. We were all wronged. So it's got to be strategies, along with what you're saying, Kamm, to deal with our elected officials, because now they seem to be running from the issue of reparations. None of them wants to talk about it. Me and Richard was a part of a meeting that we had here in Philadelphia, and the legislative chair of NCOBRA, Sister Kenneth Henry, was saying that she lobbied all 58 members of the Congressional Black Caucus to see who would want to take up the mantle or the flag, so to speak, and keep running, like John Conyers and Sheila Jackson Lee that passed away, and none of them was interested. She said that she had hopes that Cori Bush and the brother in New York, his name just escaped me. Yes, would do it because they had expressed that they would be interested, but then they were run out of office by Jewish lobby. So now we see the other ones strangely silent. They never bring up reparations unless they're asked, and then when they ask, they give runaround answers like they, doing the soft shoe or the tap dance. So I'm just asking you a question, and you don't have to give details. Either you or Sister Achoti can weigh in. During the strategy session, will it be other strategies talked about and put forth or developed, a plan B, so to speak, some type of direct action to force these people into doing what's right by us and our children in behalf of our ancestors and their abuse? Because it's going to have to take some forced action. These people are not going to do it willingly, and I'm just voicing my opinion. I want both of you, both you and Sister Achoti, to weigh in on that.
Yeah, so definitely I believe that, they had to be forced to do it. And what, black voters were saying prior to Biden stepping out was that, they wanted, him to earn the vote. They were threatening to go to the Republican side. They were threatening to not come out and vote at all. They were threatening to vote independent. I think that type of action was the courage that we needed. However, when Biden stepped out and put a sister in who identifies as black and Asian, a lot of blacks have just jumped all over that. That's something that we should all rally behind, regardless of her politics, but especially in regards to reparations. And so we lost a sense of that power. So part of the strategy session is to come away with actions. Some of those actions most of those actions are nonviolent means of letter writing and petitions and die-ins outside of offices and things like that. We haven't developed a massive mass-based action that would have that level of force like some of the civil rights demonstrations in the past. And we have to get there. In regards to California showed us what to do and what not to do. I mean, they did a great job in, like you said, assembling those experts and scholars. I think there was over 1,000 scholars or something that testified, gave testimony, a huge number. But they also showed us how not to engage publicly with all of the contentions they had in California. And it was those contentions between the lineage group and the non-lineage groups that delayed and distracted the task force from doing its primary job. And its primary job was to produce a set, because I wrote the legislation, they adopted the federal legislation that I wrote when we revised H.R. 40. The focus of the commission, in that case the task force, was to produce a document of proposals and projects that had dollar amounts to them, the action, the outcomes, everything a proposal actually is supposed to have. And a time frame, who gets what, who gets this, who gets that. They did none of that. And so they sent these 13 or 14 pieces of legislation to the Assembly. And the Black Caucus rejected 4 of them, I believe, and sent the others through. And the governor vetoed 2 of them. And so they still have probably 7 or 8 that were actually passed into law, mostly symbolic, mostly in the form of satisfaction, because that is a form of reparation. But it wasn't the substantive ones. And I believe that's the case because there was too much contention and fighting, or the commission didn't do its work, and they left it up to legislators. They said it came out of the task force session, which what we want to do at a federal level is with a single document or section of a document that can be voted on in its entirety, or sections can be voted on, like you might have an economic section, you might have an educational section, you might have a land section, a repatriation section. So all they can be, and you have proposals under each of these sections that actually have, date certain times for when this particular form of repair or healing should take place. It may be generational. Several may be generational. Some may be for 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And here's what it's going to cost. That is what that task force was supposed to produce. But the distractions, the fighting, which, what we're trying to do with our strategy session is to introduce the concept of operational unity so that we won't take these type of actions forward. In New York, they've already started. Here in Illinois, we have an Illinois State Commission. There's already that type of dissension and contention. And it's just in this distraction from keeping us from being healed and repaired.
We're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, we got a couple calls on the line. But you can get involved, too, with a question or comment by dialing 215-490-9832. That's 215-490-9832. We're in conversation with activist, reparations organizer, and Director of Reparations United, Brother Kamm Howard, and also Chief of Staff of Afrodescendant Nation, Sister Tamara Achoti Singleton is with us. Again, you can get involved in the conversation by dialing 215-490-9832. That's 215-490-9832. Time for an awakening. We'll be right back.
listening to Time for an Awakening. Time for an Awakening with host Brother Elliot and Brother Richard on Time for an Awakening Media, part of the Black Talk Radio Network. For podcasting or live program scheduling, hit them up at timeforanawakening@gmail.com.
All Insurance Incorporated, an African-American owned and operated insurance agency in business for over 20 years, located at 231 Southeastern Road in Glenside, PA, with other offices in Germantown and West Philadelphia. Call now for commercial insurance quotes, homeowners insurance quotes, automobile insurance quotes, notary and tax services, representing over 15 major A-rated insurance companies, offering a discount on all notary services when you call in for a free quote. Call this number, 215-885-2444. That number is 215-885-2444. 215-885-2444. All Insurance Incorporated.
RG Electrical Inspections provides electrical inspections for realtors, licensed electricians, and homeowners. Licensed and insured underwriter, serving Philadelphia and surrounding area. Call today, 484-268-9837.
Escape the digital plantation. abibitumi.com, abibitumi.tv, abibitumitv.com, abibitumi.store are here for you. You are ready to be free of non-African social media. Don't run from danger, run to safety. abibitumi.com is here for you. You are ready to be free of digital plantations to control your own products. abibitumi.store is here for you. ABIBITUMI, Black Power, ABIBITUMI. The only word you need to know to join your global Kemetiu Black family, to join your interconnected Kemetiu Black communities. Escape the digital plantation now. abibitumi.com, abibitumi.tv, abibitumitv.com, abibitumi.store. We are here for you. Escape the digital plantation.
It does not profit black people or poor people anything to have the vote and not be able to select the candidates who they want to choose. Now, how can you choose between Lyndon Johnson, Nixon, Agnew, Wallace, and Humphrey? There is no choice. Evil is evil. There's nothing in between that. I think the vote can only be used as a tool of organization. We can only use the vote to organize our people. Now, to really believe that we can put someone in office and that these people would be responsive to our needs is naive, politically naive. Because even if one of the black candidates who ran for office was to take the office of president, then black people must be prepared to fight against that person. Why? Because, you see, the system mandates the action of the individual. The individual does not determine how this country will function. This country works off the military-industrial complex, which means that it's profitable to wage war. And unless you devise another plan, another scheme to sustain, to boost this economy, then it's going to be necessary to wage war. Whether, a black individual is in office or a white individual is in office. Well, we're talking about a complete a change in system.
The system is rotten to the core. That's why every time we have had a presidential election, whether it's white or black, you always have to choose between the lesser of two evils. So you either vote for Satan or the devil, and you catch hell with either one.
And this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community, and have been made celebrities, and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.
One black man believes in violence, one believes in integration, one believes that one day after we all marry white women, we'll all be a light brown color and there'll be no problem. One believes that if we get enough politics and education, we can take over the country and be the mayor and the president. One believes, such as I, that separating on some land will solve it. Cleaning up our own neighborhoods, respecting our own women, and doing something for ourselves and quit begging white people. This is our solution.
You know, we really are being colonized. In a colony, the education is controlled from outside. The politics is controlled from outside. The economics is controlled from outside. The police in a colony are not there to serve and to protect, but there to keep the colonized ones from disturbing the status quo. The question is, do we want to continue to live as a colony, or do we want to be like the original 13 colonies and decide that we've had enough? Let's break from a colonial past and let's seek freedom.
Time for an Awakening is a proud part of the Black Talk Radio Network, the #1 independent black digital and podcasting platform.
Welcome back to Time for an Awakening. It is 8:14 on this Sunday edition of Time for an Awakening. Our guest this evening in conversation, activist, reparations organizer, and Director of Reparations United, Brother Kamm Howard is with us. Also, Chief of Staff of the Afrodescendant Nation, Sister Tamara Achoti Singleton is with us. The National Reparations Strategy Call to Action meeting on October the 11th with over 30 organizations participating. You or your organization can be part of it. Also, the National Reparations Plebiscite is part of the discussion this evening. It's an upcoming Plebiscite marathon that'll be upcoming, and we'll get both Kamm and Sister Achoti to kind of tell us the days and the times that everyone can participate. And you can get involved, again, with a question or comment for our guests by dialing 215-490-9832. That's 215-490-9832. We got a couple of folks up here that dialed in with questions. But before I get to them, Brother Kamm and Sister Achoti, if you want to weigh in, Brother Kamm, when you were on, wait a minute, hold it. I'm sorry. Brother Kamm, you there?
I am here.
Okay. I remember when you were on with us, this maybe before COVID, and you were still in Cobra at the time. And I'll never forget we were in conversation about several different issues, and you mentioned the challenge of money with organizations, and your activism at that time in Chicago when you wanted to go out in the community handing out flyers to be able to get information out. The money was always a challenge. I don't know whether you remember the conversation that we had then. But we see now that it's a lot more organizations, especially, if you go back 25, 30 years, you had September 12th movement, you had the Nation of Islam in Cobra, and maybe one or two other organizations that was involved on the ground in reparations. But now you see that a lot more people are involved in organizations, which is a good thing. But the only thing different is we're working against an enemy. And they're always strategizing to cause dissension among black people. They understand that because we're in the struggle for reparations and repair, they understand that as a whole, we don't have the money or funds to quote unquote compete. We have individuals with some money, but as a collective, we don't necessarily have it like they do, disposable income. So they kind of use that to cause dissension among formations. And in my opinion, I think it has been used to a degree in the reparations formations. Talk about how we can, as a people, work together to block these type of things, to make sure that all of our people understand the struggle and keep their eyes on the prize and don't get distracted by money that these organizations wave in our face. Because we have to realize that none of these organizations really want to see black people free and black people repaired. They don't. I don't care what they say, they don't. So how do we protect against this? Kamm, I want you to weigh in on it, and Sister Achoti, you weigh in on it also. But go ahead, Brother Kamm, your mic is open.
So definitely, brother, I was saying I have about 5 minutes I can stay on. Okay. And I want to answer the question. But before I do, I just want to reiterate that, on the 11th, we're having a strategy session. We're going to start the strategy session out with our elders in the movement, allow them to speak first, those who have been in the movement. We have Adjoa Otero, one of the founders of Macobra, Amafia Namanganza, also founder of National Black Lawyers, Dr. Ray Winbush, Dr. Ivor Carruthers, Dr. James Smalls. Again, we're going to have Dr. Mamalani Karinga give us a presentation on Operation Unity, and Chairman Omali Chatella is going to speak to us about reparations advocacy in the context of freedom of speech. As you know, he was just acquitted of working on behalf of the Russian government when he was championing a cause, anti-genocide and reparations struggle or actions around the country for a number of years. So he will be speaking before we have many comments from various organizations that are part of the strategy session. So you can go to earntheblackvote.net. There's a tab that's called Reparations Strategy Session. Click on that tab and you can register. So in regards to your question, there's a tremendous amount of money has been thrown into the reparations movement. Prior, when I was having a conversation with you, the reparations movement was 100% volunteer movement and self-funded. One of the first organizations that began to put a salaried person on the reparations issue was Human Rights Watch, when they decided they wanted to get involved with what we were doing around HR 40, getting co-sponsors as such. They appointed 2 persons to actually work full time on that process. At that point, the reparations movement became professional, no longer a volunteer, mass-based movement. Although that is still the foundation of the movement. We had to bring the masses in, but how we get them in is now a different process. These organizations, there are tons of them popping up, especially with the local reparations actions going up around the country. You're going to have several organizations that are strictly local, and you're going to have some that are regional and some that are national. One thing is happening, though, also, is that the money is lessening. Even though there's still some money coming into the movement, the money has with these lawsuits, the money has begun to lessen already. So it's not something we're going to be able to depend on. You're going to have to depend on things that, we're trying to do with the strategy session. Make sure that all of these organizations know what the other organizations are doing and how they can complement and benefit, and that we have a singular strategy, a singular goal that we can all join on to and move it toward victory. So it's going to be a challenge going forward. Those who have depended on money, they'll see what they have to do to get it or to keep it. And those who, was in this movement long before the money came, we'll just continue to do what we have to do.
Brother Kamm, you do have to go. Is it possible you could take a couple, Sister, hold on, Brother Kamm. Sister Achoti, can you stay with us a little bit longer? Sister Achoti?
Yes, sir, I can. I'm going to be on the road, however, but yes, sir, I can.
Good. Okay. I want to try to maybe get a couple of these calls again, just if they want to address Brother Kamm. Let's go to LaGrange, Georgia.
Hey, greetings. Can you hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. Thanks for another good spirited program, and I'm glad that you got me in first before Kamm left, because I've got about just 6 little quick points I want to touch on regarding him and the sister that I've been hearing from your interview. And of course, and let me identify first that I am, of course, I identify as a freedman. And of course, and I am, I do champion in America a lineage-based reparations. Any other conversation with me is a non-starter. But I do appreciate the overture about bringing these groups together. That's a nice overture, and I really commend you all for that effort and that energy and that spirit. But in the back of my mind, I'm also wondering, could this be some element of force teaming, which is not good as well? And I did hear something that was wrong. Someone made the sister made mention of reparations only going to nations. That's an old Hotep talking point that tends to try to discredit lineage-based reparations. The people that's got reparations from the United States were United States citizens. They may have coincidentally had lineage from other nations, but it's not like nations lined up and say, give them those reparations. The issue around the Supreme Court, and of course, in the path to reparations, it has been crystal clear since the California Task Force that, especially in this climate, race is a non-starter. Race is a non-starter. The best chance, there could be a chance of getting it through once it gets through Congress and it passes strict scrutiny and muster. And that's if it's done using lineage, not race. And of course, and we've got some, and there's some information and there are some hints that have been linked.
Well, I don't want to cut you, but you might not be able to.
Please, let me get my other 3 points, and then let him, because he don't have much time.
Yeah, but you ain't answering your question. I want you to ask your question.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Come on, man. You know me better than that. Don't do that in front of company.
Well, listen. Hold up. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Come on,
the only reason I'm saying this because the brother said that he has to go.
Yeah. I'm pretty.
So I'm good.
I'm halfway there. Let's go. This is about 38 seconds here that we'll be wasting. So let me get to this point. Yeah, and as far as the commission, as far as the California Commission, hello. Okay, yeah, and let me get to these just 2 more quick points. The commissions. Are we there? Can y'all still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, the California commissions. I just disagree slightly with his take on it. I appreciate him appreciating the work of the commission, but the issue of eligibility had to be addressed. And of course, and obviously, him not necessarily being a champion of lineage space, he would probably have that position. And the black elected officials, I'm glad that you asked that question, because we got to understand that our black elected officials are Democratic officials. They're Democrat first and black second. They are not, bad as they may want to take it up. If Nancy Pelosi tells them you better not do it, they're not going to do it. And that's the issue of that. And then, of course, the issue of money that you just asked about, money creeping into the reparations conversation. I don't know how objective one could be that takes money from the MacArthur Foundation. Now, the lineage-based reparations, of course, the ADOS conference is going on right now in New Orleans, and that is a kind of church plate, pass the plate kind of endeavor. and everything that's been done as far as the FBA rallies, those have been passed the plates. But let's keep it a buck. Those monies that go into that those other reparations organizations get, particularly the ones that doesn't support lineage, you cannot get those monies if you support lineage-based reparations. Lineage-based is prohibited to be able to get those monies. So I don't know how honest of an answer you was going to get from someone like that. But, and the last thing, and the question, and so is, the elephant in the room is who's eligible. And that goes back to the lineage issue. And so, but yeah, so I just want to, just get his take on all of that, before he bounces.
So that was a lot, brother. One of the things I want to push back really hard on you is when you say if it's not lineage discussion, it's a non-starter. There can't be any non-starters among black people when we're pushing for federal redress. You may not agree that someone has a different position, but you have to be able to allow people to have different positions because no one group has a total answer. Now, when it comes to lineage as a foundation for legal argument, we don't know if that's going to pass or not because there hasn't been a single reparative initiative that was established strictly on the lineage-based model. What we do know is that a crime and harm-based model will solve the constitutional issue because we know what has happened in Evanston, and it's continuing to happen. Even though there's a lawsuit, we are more than certain that this crime harm-based, or at least harm-based, legal foundation that they rested their initiative on will win. So we don't know if that's the case for lineage. But we do know we do have another legal foundation that we can stand on. If we have two, then that's great. Let's have both. But to say if someone has a non-lineage position, it's a non-starter, that's totally against any concept of unity. In regards to the MacArthur resources that NCOBRA got, we didn't look for those resources. It was an unsolicited grant. They called us and said they want to put some money into the reparations movement. They had three things they wanted us to do. Hire some administrative staff, expound on our work, and build out our infrastructure. And, that was what we were doing regardless if that money came in. We were going to increase our work. That was under my leadership. That's what we were determined to do. So when the resources came, it gave us a great opportunity to compete within a professional reparations movement that exists at this point. And COBRA was being outworked because we didn't have people who were committed to a full-time position because we couldn't pay them full-time until we got these resources. And that's what you see around the country right now. You're not getting the best work out of some of these organizations, but you're getting full-time work on the issue of reparations, which we never had before. There was something else that I really wanted to speak to that you stated. It was money.
Like officials.
And there was something else.
California Task Force.
No, it wasn't that either. I lost my thought. But with black elected officials, it is what it is. The Democrats are only party among the elected who are pushed that reparations issue. You haven't had a single Republican in the 30-plus years that the legislation, H.R. 40, has been in Congress. Not a single Republican has signed on to the legislation. So it's a partisan issue, and that's the bag that we're putting in, and we have to play those cards to the best of our ability. So, yeah, that's what I would have to say about that.
Okay, brother. What I'll do, I'll put you back on hold because I noticed you had a question that you wanted to ask the sister, but the only reason because Kamm had to leave, so I'll put you back on hold and I'll bring you on so you can ask her a couple of questions.
Yeah, one of those questions was for her. The only question I had for her was I just had some pushback on the
Well, I'll bring you back on. I'll bring you back on. I'll just put you on hold briefly. Let's go to Newport News. Newport News. Newport News.
I don't really think I want to comment.
All right. Let's go to caller.
Yes, I'm glad you taking my call on this one. I I would first like to say, Flavor Flav has a saying, and the saying is 911 is a joke. And I refer to lineage as 911 is a joke, because the reality is this. I think what Kamm has done and the sister has done has been admirable work. But the reality is we in this country are in a situation right now, and I don't think we really realize it, that if Harris isn't elected and Trump is elected, because there's only two choices. There's no third party that's going to get in office, so we don't need to even address and deal with that. The reality is, if Trump gets in office, reparations is finished. He's not even going to discuss it. And the sad thing is, and I think maybe what you're doing on the 11th, brother, is bringing these reparation organizations together so maybe we could retool. Because you're in a situation in this country where we own, manufacture, produce, and control nothing. So the reality is, we have to figure out how we're going to collectively come together in one accord and pick 2 or 3 things that we could use as a power base to even bring reparations back into the discussion if Trump gets in office. Because when you have situations with this lineage and all of that other ADS nonsense, how we moving forward?
Well, I don't want.
We got to figure out how we can move forward as a total collective, and the only way I see it is all of the groups coming together and picking 2 things and buckling down on these 2 things and figuring out how we're going to use those 2 things as a power base to get back in the game. Because the game is over if Harris don't get in office, because you see none of the politicians are discussing anything with you. They're not backing you. They're not doing anything. And it was just proven what happened in California. But I support you.
Well, I'll put you on hold because Kamm said that his phone was dying, and it evidently it must have died. So I'll put you back on hold. Sister Cody. Sister Cody, can you hear me?
I think there she go.
Okay, Sister Cody. Sister Cody?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Oh, I hear you now.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, so yes, I can.
Okay. I don't know whether you heard the last caller when he was saying that if Trump wins this election, reparations conversation is over. I know you don't agree with that, but speak to it from the organization or the several organizations, because there's over 30 organizations involved. Speak to it from their vision of what we need to do as a people. And then the brother caller from LaGrange, Georgia, wanted to ask you a question, but I don't know whether you heard the last comment. Maybe you want to address that.
No, I didn't hear the last comment, my brother, but I can speak to the general essence of what you just said. Regardless to who's in the White House, the Afrodescendant Nation position is that we are an Afrodescendant nation, and we're
your audio is
government of the United States and all those actors who have been involved. We're petitioning them to pay repair to us through the form of reparations. And so I said before, in order for us to obtain reparations, we must declare ourselves as a nation. And I think that clears it up in a nutshell for me. Hear me, my brother?
Yes. Yep. Yes. Richard,
okay, so...
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That question, I don't know if that answered the question because I didn't hear it because I told you before I was in transition. But, yeah, for sure. to me, it doesn't matter who's in office. The repair that we're putting forward in our demand, reparations, and repair to our nation of people, remains the same. So whomever is in office, we're still going to be demanding this not only on the national level, and shout out to our brother Kamm Howard in the Reparations United movement and what he has going on October 11th. I definitely look forward to participating in that. But regardless to the outcome of an executive order, regardless to if we get an executive order for a commission to study reparations, to cut checks or not, we will continue our fight on the international level. So I am from the perspective of this. We are not a monolithic people. We can walk and chew gum in time. We are all made up of different factions, of different organizations, and that is beautiful because we can all choose a lane. What I am asking for your list.
Oh, shit.
Afro.
Yeah, sit down and have a conversation. He was a great guy.
Oh, wow.
We're breaking up. We're breaking up. Sister, you're breaking up.
Dang it, man.
Oh, boy.
She can't hear us.
Yeah, damn. Boy. Sister Tamara, can you get to a better, can you get stationary or get to a, hello?
45%. I got.
No.
Richard,
yeah.
I think while we had them both here, the position is clear. The October the 11th, you know what? And I got to get the time here straight and where people can go on there. Now they're talking about organizations. So, and listen, we've always been talking about this. It's important for our people to be organized. And she's back. Let me see whether it's a little clearer now. Sister Achoti, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I do apologize for that technical glitch, but on the road, I'm changing towers, so I pray that you all forgive me for that.
Okay, no problem. You were saying something that was important, and you got kind of garbled.
And that was in relationship to the international aspect of what the Afro-descendants was approach.
Yeah, and the struggle to continue no matter who's in office.
Correct. Yes. So we're doing things on the national and the international level, and I was saying that we all must stay in our lanes. Our brother Kamm is doing terrific work on the national level here in the United States to bring awareness to our plight and, petition these politicians to, I guess you can say, own up to the repair that needs to be given. But on the international level, you have the Afrodescendant Nation that is also echoing the same sentiment that, hey, you have a group of people who have declared themselves to be a nation within a nation that is saying that the international community, number one, needs to recognize them as a distinct nation group of people with human rights to be self-determined and recognized as the Afro-descendant nation. And by the way, some of them within the international community owes us reparations, the same as you have the Israeli state receiving reparations from the United States for atrocities that was committed against their people, which the United States had no part in, but yet the United States taxpayers are paying for their reparations. We're saying just the same as you're doing for those Israelis over there in the Jewish state, that is actually a nation within the nation, because before it was Israeli nation, it was the Palestine. So now it was Palestine. So now you got two nations. We're saying that the very same thing can happen here in the United States. We're a nation of people, a distinct nation of people that have a distinct culture, a distinct history, and we're asking that the international community, or we're demanding that the international community recognize us as such and pay reparations, that's repair for the harm that has been done to us, that has never been paid to us as it was paid to these other nations, Japanese, i.e. Also the Israeli state of Israel, whom we're still paying reparations to this day. So when people say the United States can't pay us reparations, that's a lie. It's just a bold-faced lie. We just have to put our foot on their necks to make them understand why it is imperative that they repair a people that they have harmed. Submitted.
Richard, did you want? I'm gonna go back to LaGrange and I'll come back to you, Richard. LaGrange.
Hey, yes. Thanks for letting me hang on now that she's back. Yes, sister. I've got a question for you, but I just want to challenge your facts there on something that you make, because that point that you can't get reparations unless you're a nation, we debunked that a long time ago. And those are talking points that really, I guess they really kind of undermine the whole push for a people group. But just to prove that, the Japanese interns, those were United States citizens. It wasn't the country of Japan. The freedmen actually got reparations before they killed Lincoln, and of course, and Johnson reneged on them. And of course, nations have gotten reparations. Guam got them and things of that nature. But we just want to be careful and make sure we're historically accurate. And when we're making those general points, we can and we will get reparations. Yes. But now, what I wanted to ask you in that gathering of the 30 groups, were any leadership from the lineage-based movements present and at the table and a part of your conversation? And
I'm sorry, brother. Repeat your question.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that. At your plebiscite roundtable, were any of the lineage-based movements there represented? ADOS, FBA, United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, were any of them represented there? Even though FBA is not a group, it's a movement. Was anybody there represented and a part of and a prominent part of that discussion?
When you say plebiscite roundtable, I'm lost. Well, I don't remember me saying there was a plebiscite.
That's my term. Yeah, that's my term. But whatever you call it, that's just what I call it, because I've heard the word plebiscite about 12 times. So I was just asking, at your group of your 30 reparationists, that group of 30 plus that you all assembled, was any of the lineage-based movements there, or any of the leadership from the lineage-based movements there? And lineage-based movements, that's ADOS, FBA, Freedmen, CJAC, NASD, any of those folks.
Okay, I think what you're doing is you're confusing what we have going on with the Afro-Descendant Nation and our plebiscite vote with Kamm's movement to organize those 30 group of individuals. So what I can speak to is the plebiscite vote regarding lineage. We are saying at the Afro-Descendant Nation that we're not discriminating against anyone who can identify with the Afro-Descendant term definition. So that includes American descendants of slaves, that includes the freedmen, that include those that identify as indigenous and aboriginal, and that also includes foundational Black Americans. So what you will find, my brother, is that the Afro-Descendant Nation is inclusive of all of those individuals, like I said, that can identify with the term Afro-Descendant as defined by the Honorable Salis Muhammad, as well as the UN has recognized that is the term in which they refer to African Americans, so-called blacks, so-called freedmen, so-called Negroes here in America and throughout the diaspora. I just want to say this. I don't know if I said it before, but there are also 19 other countries that have embraced and have decided to self-determine their identity and identify as Afro-descendants. So the people in the international community are referring to us here in the United States of America as Afro-descendants. It's just us here in America who have not embraced the Afro-descendant term by ignorance. When I say by ignorance, that's not a derogatory term. That just means that you do not know.
No. Yes.
And that's why I'm here to let you know that we are now declaring Afro-descendants. Or then we have the other factions that want to just identify with foundational Black Americans or American descendants of slaves. What I'm saying is that you are all welcome under the umbrella of the Afro-Descendant Nation, because after all, we are all now recognized on the international stage, or have been referred to on the international stage as Afro-descendant. And I pray I answered your question, my brother.
That was my error. I was under the assumption that a meeting had already taken place, so maybe I was getting what you were saying and what he was saying confused. That's what that was a premise of my question. I was under the I expressed earlier. I appreciate that overture, but I was under the impression that a meeting of those groups had already taken place. But thank you for that answer.
Well, let me say something. Let me say something before I let you go. I did attend online the last meeting in Washington D.C. Where several groups was organized, and I think that was the organization at Kamm, Sister Achoti, that Cornel West spoke at, and there was several groups then that was in attendance, and I did see Richard. Were you aware? Freedman's was represented.
Yeah, somebody did attend that spoke.
That spoke. Freedman's and one other. I guess foundational. I don't get into all those terms, but one other foundational group was there. But I do remember somebody from Freedman spoke that was represented. So it's other groups that was represented. But we really need to come together. I know that you mentioned something being a non-starter, but as our people here struggling for reparations, we can't afford to nothing to be a non-starter. Because that stuff that happened in California double-crossed all of us. Whether I consider myself ADOS, Freedman, or Indigenous, Pan-African, that double-crossed all of our people. So
right, but we've got to be honest though. That's the elephant in the room. And if we're going to talk about
the only way we're going to do exactly, we're going to have to talk about
that's the elephant in the room. And if we don't get eligibility determined, it's just all just a Hotep sideshow.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means about the Hotep sideshow. See, it's conversations like that don't need to be. We can talk to one another intelligently.
A lot of people got different. Yeah, that wasn't a dig.
Well, whatever.
Why do you take that as a dig?
All right. Thanks for your call, brother.
Let me say this. The meeting for the National Reparations Strategy is on the 11th. Now, we didn't get the specifics as far as how do you. I don't see the specifics as far as how do you reach out if you want to, as an organizational representative, to be able to attend. That's. I think that's supposed to be clear. That there's a National Reparations Strategy meeting on the 11th, and I believe it's happening. That's not happening in Washington D.C. I don't see.
No, it's that's online.
Virtual.
Yeah. I'll make sure the link is put up when I post this podcast. But there's links for people to go on there and be part of it. They're talking about organizations, but I don't think there's a problem with individuals.
Right, and that's because everyone, regardless, should be an ambassador for their organization. It doesn't necessarily have to be a leadership person, but if you're representing a particular movement or organization that is specifically looking towards reparations, you're working towards reparation, that's what their strategy session is to occur, with the goal to get, before Biden leaves, to get him to push forward an executive order for the commission. That's the goal. Now, the question of the, coming together, and Brother Kamm mentioned about where you can be able to share, share with each other the information that will be compiled of how people are approaching it, and that would be turned in, if I have this right, into some kind of overall booklet that everybody can be able to disseminate in relationship to this objective of working towards getting Biden to create this, through the executive branch, create this commission before November, or before he leaves. I think that's important. With all the other stuff being real, that's important to understand what the 11th is about. Is about being able to come together, the different organizations who are already working on reparations, no matter how they identify, and share their strategy in relationship to this goal of getting Biden to put forth this executive action. I don't see where the difficulty or the differences would be in relationship to that. That's one. And two, and I think that's Sister Achoti, that making it clear, and what just like those who are looking as citizens of America, no matter how they self-identify, or those who look at themselves as indigenous. The one thing that I really respect that the Afrodescendant Nation put forward for us to be able to, in this plebiscite, for us to be able, they put forward the ballot, and Sister Achoti, you can inform us of how we can be able to either attend the session or to get access to the ballot, so that we can be able to fill that out. I think you said 8 questions. I don't know what happened to mine. I had it on my phone, so that our role is to pass it out, because in that, and the reason why I'm emphasizing this diversity, and I hope that people really understand and stay centered in the history of those of us who are descendants of enslaved in North America, that this diversity is not no new thing. I just wish we would stay centered in our historical narrative more than in our personal moment or movement experience, so that we understand that we're not dealing with something new. I see you, Sister Achoti. Can you share how we can get access to the ballot, and what the event that in relationship to around the plebiscite will be?
Certainly, my brother. If you want to cast your vote right now today, you simply go to afrodescendant.org/plebiscite. And the screen will come up, and you hit the button and you say, take the vote, cast your vote. Or you can text reparations to 1-877-506-2184. Again, 1-877-506-2184 to cast your vote for reparations. When you go to that number, or when you go to the website, you'll be asked a series of questions. Answer those questions honestly. And that would help us to gauge how our people are feeling and how they're feeling about, identifying as an Afro-descendant, and how they're feeling about being self-determined, and how they're feeling about having the right to reparations. So that is the website again, afrodescendant.org/plebiscite. Cast your vote today. Also on November 5th, which is the national election day for the United States presidential election, we're asking you to join us at the National Reparations Convention YouTube channel for a marathon, a reparations marathon, where you too can participate in a series of informational videos concerning the Afrodescendant Nation, and also participate in the live marathon reparations vote at that time. So you have a number of ways that you can participate with this plebiscite vote. We're looking forward to a robust engagement, and this is our opportunity to declare our right to self-determination, as well as cast your vote for reparations. This election day, cast a vote for yourself with the Afro-Descendant Nation. And I thank you, my brother, for having me once again.
Sister Brown, before you leave, you had mentioned that 12 nations had decided to self-identify as Afro-descendant. Could you name those 12, or do you have them in front of you?
Unfortunately, I do not have those names in front of me, but I do believe, sir, it's 19 nations.
Okay.
19 countries.
Okay.
19 individual countries have Afro-descendants within their countries that have declared themselves to be Afro-descendant. And I apologize. I wish you would have asked that question before I got to traveling, but
Okay.
understand that there are also 19 other countries that have Afro-descendants within their countries that have declared themselves to be an Afro-descendant. And I think, my brother, that is very powerful. I think that basically the world is waiting on us here in the Americas to declare ourselves to be Afro-descendants in unity, and the Afro-Descendant Nation is here for you, waiting with open arms.
You're absolutely right. Thank you, sister, for your participation this evening, and I'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, my brother. Shalom.
All right. Richard, do you have the ballot in front of you?
No, that's what I was looking for. I didn't. I thought I put it on my phone.
She mentioned that 8 questions where the organizations involved, Afro-descendant, can get a gauge on what's going on. Now, keep in mind that I think Kamm mentioned that blacks in America, and I'm talking about that's been here. I'm not talking about other blacks that have migrated here. Total over 50 million, and that other nations that don't even have half of that amount have declared themselves as Afro-descendant and have a seat on the UN. You remember when he mentioned that?
Right.
I want to play this clip, but before I do that, Richard, let me read the 8 questions that's on the ballot. And it's the number 1 for the listening audience, and I'm going to make sure the links for the ballot. In fact, she told you, she mentioned where you could just do it from your phone.
Right. Text it.
Okay.
1-877-750-6284.
Now, here's some of the questions. Here's the 8 questions. I'll read the 8. Number 1 ballot question: do you declare your right to receive full and complete reparations? You can answer yes or no. Second question: do you declare your right to self-determination? Do you consent and declare your rights to have complete control over your own affairs as a people and be able to govern yourselves? Yes or no? Let me go to the third one. Do you consent to lawful self-identify as Afro-descendant in the United States? Yes or no? Number 4, which of the 4 options would you prioritize to be pursued as a form of self-determination? And they got 4 options here. Remain a U.S. citizen. And they got priority levels, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4. Return to Africa under birthright. You can answer that. Immigrate to another country. You can answer that. The creation of an independent nation on U.S. soil and becoming a sovereign nation that we can call our own. So it's 4 simple questions. Remain a U.S. citizen. Return to Africa under your birthright. Immigrate to another country. Or the creation of an independent nation on U.S. soil and become a sovereign nation that we can call our own. Those 4 questions. That's the 4th question on the ballot. Number 5. Do you agree to no longer be declared under the status of minority in the United States? And do you consent to the status of indigenous with all the rights and privileges conferred? Yes, no, or unsure. So that's the only one that has a 3rd one there. Mm-hmm. Number 6. Do you agree to support your vote in this plebiscite referendum by supporting legitimate organizational efforts to achieve full and complete reparations and self-determination, including enacting economic sanctions or other necessary political actions? Yes or no? And number 7, do you agree with the principle of solidarity with other blacks, Afro-descendant, who have suffered the above detailed crimes against humanity? Do you consent to receive support? Do you consent to receive support from and agree to offer support to Afro-descendant organizations and other reparations organizations in the Western Hemisphere and around the world? Yes or no? And I'm sorry, it was 7 questions, not 8. 7 here. And I just presented the 7 questions, Richard. Not difficult. Mm-hmm. You don't have to get out a workbook and think about it. Just answer the questions honestly, yes or no. And the one had the unsure. You remember when I read that one, Richard?
Right. So,
go ahead.
I was just thinking, for me, it gives people the opportunity to self-identify, right? So it doesn't take anything away from, it's not a competitive thing. It's not a one-upsman. You're right. You're wrong. It's, as a national formation. And again, if we stay within the history, you heard Kamm mention Martin Delany. Well, even before Martin Delany, there were those who were descendants of the enslaved, who thought that it was best to be self-governing, to have a space. Even after the Civil War, there was those who said they thought it was best. That's just one option. It was definitely clear that a lot said they didn't want to leave. So and I'm glad that they're having the plebiscite marathon on, the November 5th, so that when people are voting for the party, here we have an opportunity, like for ourselves. Right. When we had conventions and we sent delegates to represent us in different regions, to vote on and to formulate an agenda, to debate issues, to come up with strategies and tactics in order to deal with our situation. And that we did that for ourselves. We wasn't doing it for a party. And with some, even after doing that, went to a party with that agenda. So I just don't see where and that's why my series of questioning is about getting over this. Like, we got to be people talk about like we're not a monolith. Well, okay, then let's act like we are a pluralistic people who can be able to come together. They call it operational unity, and deal with the issue at hand. And it's only one that we wish to get repaired. This one. Yes, we can come up with other agenda items, one or two. But if we want to use a test case of whether we can be able to come together with our diversity under our own terms and decide a strategy and tactic and an agenda, then what is the problem with that? And at least center it, and that's why I keep saying center in our own history, because what I hear sometimes is that we're centering it in our own moment more than in our history. If we center in our history is long. But if we center in our moment, we only can see what's in our moment in relationship to our organizational effort. And we talk about these other people got 50, 25, 50, 100-year plans, and we're living in the moment, debating, arguing, having differences, trying to confront what's right in front of us when somebody's already planned our opposition. Our natural opposition has already planned 100 years and placed us as a group, maybe not as individuals, but as a group, where they see our city.
Yep.
I apologize to the time for waking, but this frustrates me. I mean, I've been out here 40 years. I mean, I've seen this. Even when the ADOS started in Philly, the Pan-Africanists, the nationalists, the communists. I mean, it's like we're crazy. The gangsters, we're crazy. And I don't see our communities any different 50 years later. I'll say 40 years later. I don't see the masses of our community any different. I see individuals, and I see people who have been what they call today grifters. But if you look in our history, we had grifters all along. So there ain't no new thing. The question is what white folks said, and we can always been able, can we govern ourselves? That's what's at issue. Can we govern ourselves? And if these are the outcomes that we got, we're only reinforcing what they said. We can't. From one generation to the next. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, it needs to be said. And Richard, to kind of couple, or if you got a few minutes, I want to play something here that the people can grasp. Because you remember when I mentioned to Kamm about these people using black folks and dangling money and things in our face because they know that they've deprived us of this since the end of chattel bondage. But Richard, some of the nations that have stood up on their own are speaking, and they're looking at you. You heard Sister Achoti saying that the world is waiting on us. You heard her say that, Richard.
Southern Hemisphere. And
you heard other people, other guests of ours, some of them from the continent, saying the same thing. Do you recall that?
Yeah.
Now, these folks, and I always use that term, these Europeans, they know this. So they incorporate black voices to echo their sentiments worldwide. They're doing that for a reason. See, some of our people might be asleep at the wheel. Just like Sister Achoti said when she used the term ignorant, and she cleared it up talking about not being stupid, just being not aware. Mm-hmm. They're doing this for a reason. When you see the Greenfields, the Austins, the C.O. Browns, the Jeffries, those people speaking the way they do, especially about this stuff going on now, they're doing that for a reason. Now, Richard, I want you to hear something because the UN had a session a week ago and people spoke, but you don't hear black media playing some of these other people that look like them. I don't want to get into all that stuff about, oh, he's from another country. I don't deal with all that bull. These people look like you. And if you've seen them in the street, you think that might have been your uncle, your cousin, your brother. They look like you. But listen to what they're saying. This is the key to what they're saying. And then look at your leadership here and hear what they're saying. There's something wrong with this picture. Richard, let me play this. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, which is in the islands, said something last week at the UN. And I want to play that for the listening audience to hear what he said. And then I'm going to play what the Prime Minister in South Africa, some of the things he said. But first, let me play the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. His name is Emmett Brown. This is what he said last week at the UN.
Mr. President, Trinidad and Tobago is deeply troubled by the escalation of conflict and tensions in the Middle East. We remain distressed by the ongoing war on Gaza and by the chilling flashpoints of expansion that are being deployed on a daily basis. Only someone absolutely bereft of humanity would think that it is lawful and just and even godly to respond to atrocities committed on one awful day of terror by in turn committing atrocities after atrocities. How else are we to describe the killing of over 200 UN staff members, the highest death toll in United Nations history, and the deaths of tens of thousands of civilians, including women and children? And this is not being done in secret. The entire world is watching. And the Global South in particular is appalled. The question remains, if innocent civilians, including women, children, and United Nations staff, were being killed at this record rate in the developed world, how would the world's big powers have reacted? Not likely with euphemisms and platitudes. The double standards and continued resourcing of these ongoing violations of international law send a chilling message to the Global South. And that message is this: there are some powerful people in this world who are of the view that a Palestinian child is less worthy of defense, protection, food, water, and life than another child. I am not of that view. The people of my country are not of that view. CARICOM is not of that view. International law is not a tool of mere convenience to be muted for our friends and trumpeted against our enemies. In this regard, Trinidad and Tobago has joined the call for an immediate, full, and complete ceasefire, and for the unconditional release of every single hostage. The truth is, there is no military solution to this conflict, as peace will only be achieved through negotiations in good faith and constructive dialogue among all concerned parties. We firmly believe that this is the only credible pathway to end this cycle of violence, culminating in the establishment of a sovereign and peaceful state of Palestine alongside a sovereign and peaceful state of Israel within secure borders. I can report that just 6 days ago, Trinidad and Tobago and the State of Palestine officially established diplomatic relations. We look forward to the day when the State of Palestine would be welcomed to take its seat in the General Assembly as a full member of the United Nations. It was the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who once said, "It is not possible to be in favor of justice for some people and not be in favor of justice for all people." For this reason, Mr. President, Trinidad and Tobago condemns, rejects, and repudiates any and all attempts to impede, intimidate, or improperly influence the court and its very courageous officials.
Richard, let me stop there. Richard, do you hear what he's saying?
Yeah. They forcing us to create the lines.
Well, but wait a minute. You know, blacks have been used to intimidate. You heard what he said about they don't appreciate this. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be allowed. But the United States is using blacks to do this. Right. Austin said stuff in front of the UN. Greenfield always saying something in front of the UN, voting thumbs down. Blacks are doing this. But you heard him. Why is he quoting King? Mm-hmm. King is a descendant of American slaves, so to speak, right?
Right.
He's quoting King in reference to this. The finger is being pointed at blacks here in America. What the hell is wrong with you? That's basically what he's saying.
Yeah.
Richard, read between the lines. Look what he's saying. He said, how can you agree that children's lives, women's lives are not as valuable as other lives? You heard him when he said this.
Right.
So we can't sit back and allow this so-called black leadership or this leadership class to put another face on us in the world stage, and especially among the world stage to other people that look like us. Now, I want to play what Ramposa said, but go ahead, Richard.
No, go ahead.
No. Well, I don't want you to lose your train of thought, but I'll play his. This is what he said. This is the Prime Minister of South Africa.
International law cannot be applied selectively. No one state is more equal than any other. In December last year, South Africa approached the International Court of Justice, seeking an order to prevent Israel from committing genocide against the people of Gaza. We did so in terms of our obligations as a state party to the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. As South Africa, we welcome the support that a number of countries have given to the case that we have launched at the ICJ. The ICJ's orders make it clear that there is a plausible case of genocide against the people of Gaza. They further make it clear that states must also act to prevent genocide by Israel and to ensure that they are not themselves party to the violation of the Genocide Convention by aiding or assisting in the commission of genocide. We reiterate our call for an immediate ceasefire and for the release of all hostages. The only lasting solution is the establishment of a Palestinian state, a state that will exist side by side with Israel, with East Jerusalem as its capital. Our moral conscience further demands that we exert every effort to bring peace also to other countries, especially the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, to Sudan, to Ukraine, and other parts of the African continent. We must realize the aspirations of the people of Western Sahara to self-determination. Achieving and maintaining peace and security requires the collective will of the community of nations gathered here. It requires that the UN Security Council should be a more representative body and inclusive. 78 years since its formation, the structure of the United Nations Security Council remains largely unchanged. Africa and its 1.4 billion people remain excluded from its key decision-making structures. This cannot continue.
Richard,
yeah,
you hear the demands of these nations with people that look just like us. You heard the sister say that the world is waiting on the 50 million people here to strike an independent voice, to stand up as not a mouthpiece for Europeans, but to stand up as an independent nation.
I mean, Elliot, this is why in the discussion of reparations, as Brother Dr. Henderson brought up, the structural challenge that it brings in relationship to being positioned as a people, as a colony, right? It's a structural thing. Or the sister that did the assessment about the Congressional Black Caucus having to deal in a racist, right? A racist legislative structure from its origin. That's why it's like so important for us to have this discussion around, not just discussion, our organizing effort, our having our distinction around moving forward as a people in our diversity around this reparation. And it's also important for the piece that you just played, for those of us who see that we cannot be conflicted no longer. We have to be clear. How do we as a people stand when we're looking at these things and the Southern Hemisphere, the black people of the world, at the Southern Hemisphere is looking at us, as you say, and saying, you're there. Are you in alignment with this?
I know it. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying.
And we have no response but the official, professional response. But we have no response in our ordinary, everyday life that's saying, we don't agree with this. South Africa said, we had another where they said, it was because of African American support of the anti-apartheid movement that assisted going against the American government's policy as it related to South Africa, that assisted South Africa to be free. We can't deny that. We fought with that.
Yeah.
And we was in opposition to that policy. They supported that. And here now we're looking at this and we have no That's why he evoked the king. We have no moral imperative as just ordinary citizens.
Makes no sense, Richard.
I mean, because ordinary citizens, when November 5th come, ordinary citizens is the ones that's voting.
Richard.
And we can just be silent about that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm finished.
Well, I think this is the one where he mentions about. I should have put that in there. Let me see something here. I think he mentions in this. Oh boy, wait a minute. Hold it. I think he mentions in this one about what you said about apartheid and the struggle. I think it is. Let me see. No, I can't find it. I thought I had it. Yeah, but I wanted to play those, Richard, because I thought it was important for people to hear the perspective of people that look like them in other parts of the world and how they felt about what was going on.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a reflection, Elliot, of the challenge that we have. And it's not a difficult challenge, and it's not something that we can't overcome like other challenges we have overcome. You know, because I hear this here voice like we're doomed. We're not doomed. Not because of what other folks do. Not if we doing what we need to do. But hey,
Richard, I guess before we close out this evening, let me go over the lineup one time for an Awakening Media. Before that, let me. I did have that in front of me. I think I lost it. I'll make sure I put it up on the when I put this podcast up, because the strategy session is next Friday, October the 11th, 3:30 p.m. Oh, no, so I'm sorry. 6:30 p.m. it starts, and it's virtual on Friday, October the 11th. You know, if I can, I might see whether I can just broadcast it. I'll see if that's possible. But it's I'll put up the link so folks can be able to attend virtually. I know you'll see it all over social media for people that are on social media to get involved and see what's being said, see the different organizations that are there and how they feel about not only what's in store for us as a people, but how we can develop strategies to fight back. Instead of always being reactive, we can be a little more proactive.
Yes.
Before we leave this evening, I want to give the lineup on time for an Awakening Media, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. African Perspectives with Brother Oshie. Always interesting topics and dialogue on African Perspectives. It's Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Later on in the week, Mississippi on the Move, the Black Liberation Movement in Mississippi, Brother Patrick Lumumba, Brother Malik Hayes, Brother Dubsack, Sister four hosts, Mississippi on the Move. That's Black Liberation Movement in Mississippi. Friday, Time for Awakening is back from 8 until. On Saturdays, the Elders of Sankofa with Dr. Janine James as host. On Sundays, 7 p.m. Reverend Pinckney too got a program that started at 5 o'clock on Sunday. On Sunday afternoon, Reverend Pinckney's program comes on at 5 o'clock on Time for an Awakening Media. Time for Awakening is back on Sundays from 7 until. I want to thank everybody for listening to the program this evening. Lively discussion as always, and we'll be back on Friday, Lord willing, to continue on this path towards an awakening. Peace.
Peace.